This is what the maritime business is all about: the carriage of goods, raw materials and people between different points around the globe. The shape of the ship may change, but the principle remains the same. Like most other industries, profitability depends on the difference between the cost of delivering the service and what people are prepared to pay for it. The pressure on reducing the costs is always with us. Responsible companies meet the challenge through efficient business management. But let's face it, unscrupulous owners have traditionally saved costs by avoiding crew training and vessel maintenance.
Yeah. No, you don't want to bother about all those regulations. Nah. Trust me.
They've hopped between flag states to avoid their responsibilities and encourage flag states with slack administrations to turn a blind eye to regulations.
I've done it before. Hundreds of times, yeah.
So it's been easy for unscrupulous owners to ignore legislation. The cost in lives and to the environment is self-evident, to say nothing of the damage to the image and reputation of our industry. So through the IMO, the majority of owners, operators and seafarers unions have got together to frame new legislation and operating standards, and more importantly, effective policing. Over the next few years, the basis on which the maritime industries operate will change dramatically. The new legislation, combined with tougher enforcement, will redefine the economics of this industry. After 2002, only vessels with crews which meet STCW standards and are registered by an IMO-approved flag state may use the ports of states which are party to the STCW Convention. Until that date, existing certificates of competency will be recognized. After 2002, only certificates issued by whitelist states approved by the IMO will be valid. It's likely that many of today's inadequately trained seamen will be unable to work, and vessels, currently free to trade globally, will be confined to trade between the ports of states outside the convention. Unscrupulous owners and substandard operators are sailing towards a date with destiny, where they will either have to shape up or ship out of the business. The key to making this happen is flag state control. Let's take a look at how the industry arrived at this point, the roles of flag states, the key messages from STCW, and why the business case for today's higher standards is so compelling. Realistically, change will be brought about by a series of related steps over the next few years, which will end at the 2002 deadline. It's a bit like making a jigsaw, which includes new powers for flag state and port state inspectors, implementation of STCW amendments, new ISM procedures for safe working, and establishing a list of approved flag states and labour supply states called a whitelist. Together, these initiatives will support owners who want to create a safer and more controlled maritime industry. Responsible flag states are keen to support the drive towards a better regulated industry. Gerald Cooper is the Liberian Maritime Affairs Ambassador to the IMO.
The International Maritime Organization today have placed great emphasis on flag state implementation. The flag state responsibility starts from the day the ship is accepted to be registered under its flag to the day that that ship leaves this flag. and these responsibilities must be taken seriously by the flag state. The annual inspection is conducted throughout the world and is conducted on a surprise basis.
Inspection can take place anytime, day or night, and it can take place anywhere. With as many as 45,000 inspections every year, owners of poorly maintained vessels and employers of ill-trained crews are going to find life increasingly difficult.
Ships come under the registry on condition that they do comply with the standards set, and my job is to go around to do an inspection to maintain the safety standard on the ships of the flag state. A ship gives a distinct impression as soon as you step on board. Well maintained, clean, tidy. Captain gives you a lot of assistance. Good afternoon, Captain. Afternoon. I'm Captain Hyde. I've come to do the flag state safety inspection. Thank you.
Quite a warm one today.
When I come aboard for a normal inspection, I check the last inspection form, then I run through a special form we have, starting from the certificates on the ship, like the load line certificate, safety equipment certificate, oil pollution certificate. Check through all those. From the ship certificates we go to the ship's publications. That's the certificate sorted out. If we could have a look at some of your publications, please.
Certainly.
Yeah. Are they in the bridge area here?
Yes,
yeah.
certainly.
Okay. They're supposed to have a certain amount of publications. They've checked to make sure the publications are on board and that it is the current copy. This is, you know, even in best-run ships, one of the things that tends to slip by. Articles of agreement, they're in your office. Right. Safety guide for oil tankers and terminals.
Yes, we have.
4th edition. On my inspection, I also have a walk around the ship, having a look at the general condition of it. I check navigation equipment. We check the ship's radars, the steering gear, the compasses, and everything concerned with the navigation from the charts and the publications. The fire plans, the boat station lists are checked. We also check around the ship in general to make sure that the lifeboats, the fire hoses, the fire pump, everything is fully operational. We also look in the engine room for cleanliness and make sure that the steering gear is unobstructed. They're also supposed to keep record books of the bunker oil, the lubricating oil, the sludge oil and waste oil. Yep. Usually find problems with such things as fire hoses, lifeboats, that they haven't been cleaned out properly, they're dirty, the engine hasn't been tested properly. Older ships, the galleys, storerooms, pantries are subject to dirt and infestation, but we find that the vast majority of ships these days under the flag state are well equipped, well found and well crewed. It is only the rare event that we have real problems with ships. These ships, they've probably been under a dubious flag and the ship owner is trying to make himself respectable and goes to a respectable flag state. The first problems I usually encounter are the crewing certificates. So you're getting so many different nationalities crewing the ships these days. The flag state checks seafarers' qualifications and they issue the necessary certificates if they think they're qualified for them. There are some people producing forged certificates and qualifications, so that is another reason for our inspections.
Of course, flag state inspections on their own can't guarantee higher standards of maritime safety. They only take a snapshot of the vessel and its crew at any one time. Crews and cargoes can change between inspections and faults can develop. So a key piece of the jigsaw is inspection by the authorities of the ports at which vessels arrive. If port state inspectors have any suspicions that ISM, MARPOL or STCW regulations are not being followed, they can undertake a thorough inspection of the whole vessel.
The fire hose ready?
Yeah, fire hose ready.
Can you tell me your duties in a fire drill or emergency?
My duty in emergency and fire drill, I am the member of the emergency squad,
Yes.
and my duty is to attend fire hose,
Yes.
wear fireman outfit, and attend also the fire extinguisher.
Thank you.
So there we have two elements of the jigsaw: flag state control and port state control, working together to make it difficult for vessels to slip through the net. But who is behind it all? And is all this inspection really necessary? Bill O'Neill of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO.
Shipping is and will continue to be the primary method of transporting large volumes of materials internationally. As a matter of fact, there are some 85,000 vessels engaged in this trade today. The nature of the cargoes, of course, has changed. From dry bulk and package freight, it has moved more and more into oil and chemicals. This has brought about the need amongst the 157 countries who are members of the International Maritime Organization to consider developing appropriate standards for the safe conduct of the business. This has resulted in a number of quality standards being established through international conventions. We have the Safety of Life at Sea Convention, the so-called SOLAS Convention, the MARPOL Convention, and we are introducing now the International Safety Management Code. It's all very well and good for the organization to develop standards, but unless these are actually put into play on board the ships, they're meaningless. And this responsibility primarily lies with the flag state. With the changes which have come about in the nature of the cargoes and the way the industry functions, it's become much more complex. And this has put demands on the seafarers which were not there before, and this has made it necessary for the organization to look at the Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping Convention, which is about 20 years old. As a result, the convention was modified, it was changed, and this year, for the first time, IMO has the responsibility for examining the training facilities in individual countries and assuring that they do, in fact, provide a mechanism which will deliver the skills to the seafarers necessary for them to conduct their affairs properly. In addition, they will give worldwide assurance that the certificate that the seafarer holds in fact indicates that he is capable of doing the tasks that he's assigned.
That's why STCW is so important. As with most forms of transport, the vast majority of accidents at sea are due to human error, poor communications, lack of training, people taking unnecessary risks, and people too tired to concentrate after long watches. In recent years, the situation has been getting worse rather than better. We've all seen the media, accidents and pollution. Ship owners themselves were getting worried by declining standards of seamanship, and in fact uncertainty about what were the standards. They vary so much between different countries and even between training schools in the same country. Ship owners don't usually ask for more legislation, but in this case, the need for international standards for training and certification of seamen was urgent. Today, STCW covers standards for all seafarers from master to ratings. It describes the kind of training they should have and the skills required on the bridge, in the engine room, for radio communications and navigation, as well as describing specialist skills such as those required for ro-ro operations. STCW 95 makes it clearer what people have to do and easier to enforce when they don't. So, for instance, it makes record keeping mandatory so that decisions can be traced and everybody is more accountable. It requires that companies document the experience, training, medical fitness and competency of all seafarers. It says that owners must make those documents readily available. Training and crew assessment must be continuous and also well documented. Labour supply states must provide facilities for port state and flag state inspectors to be able to validate certificates. So cheating is going to be difficult. It also says that seafarers joining a new vessel must be helped to become familiar with the safety, environmental and watch-keeping procedures of that ship.
As you can see from the sign, we're now in muster station number 2, which is the designated disabled passengers muster.
STCW goes on to say that the ship's crew must be able to show that they can coordinate their actions in emergencies. It describes minimum rest periods. For instance, you can't ask people to work more than 14 hours in any 24-hour period. If port state inspectors suspect that watchkeepers are over these limits, they can detain the ship. It also promotes good health and safety practices and leisure facilities. These regulations are now enforceable by the port state, whether or not the vessel's flag state is party to the convention. STCW also describes proper training. It specifies the quality of instructors, the facilities of the training establishment, the course content, and the skills required to gain certificates in each category. It now allows for multi-skilling so that seafarers can perform more than one role if required to do so. That's quite a lot of change, but what does it mean? Gerald Cooper.
The other aspect of shipping which the IMO has looked at has been the ISM. And basically what the ISM code does, it proves that you have a responsible management. That responsible management that is provided for in the ISM code filters down to the STW code. If you have a ship owner that is responsible, he is not going to employ an irresponsible master. He's going to ensure that the crew have gone through the proper training and are properly and legally certified.
But what's to stop less scrupulous owners and flag states carrying on with their old bad habits? Well, one major reason is the creation of the whitelist. It applies to two separate entities: flag states with whom vessels are registered and labour supply states who supply the seamen. The whitelist is a list of flag states and labour supply states which have submitted reports acceptable to the IMO regarding their preparedness for training, examination and record keeping to STCW standards. David Dearsley of the International Shipping Federation explains.
Well, the whitelist is part of the control mechanisms in the STCW convention to make sure that it's fully implemented. It involves submission of a report to the IMO and for the report to be reviewed by some experts. But it's only one of a series of measures over a period that will end in 2002. But for existing seafarers, their certificates will remain acceptable, but the countries that issued their certificates have to review the standards that they issued the old certificates to compared to the new standards and decide if any upgrading training or refresher training needs to be given to currently serving seafarers. The reason why flag states are now required to issue an endorsement to foreign seafarers is so that if evidence emerges that the seafarer is not as competent as he should be, then the flag state does at least have a document which it can withdraw. That will prevent the seafarer going back on board those ships anymore, and it also means that the flag state must advise the original country which issued the license to the seafarer that he is not competent.
So it seems that everyone in the chain is responsible for implementing their part of the STCW convention and for checking that everyone else has done the same. Owners must check that flag states are complying. The flag state must check with the labour supply state, and each must document these checks. It's also worth considering that insurers will only insure vessels with ISM STCW approval from the flag state. So rather than a single sudden change, what is being put into place is a number of regulations and a network of responsibilities which together make life difficult for irresponsible owners. In the past, it's been possible to argue that it makes sense to avoid proper maintenance and use cheaper, ill-trained crews. By 2002, the economic pendulum will have swung in favour of responsible operators. Captain Martin Whittle of Stolt-Nielsen believes that good practice is good business.
Firstly, compliance allows for the ship to continue on international voyages without restriction. Secondly, compliance reduces the risk and therefore reduces the loss and therefore increases the profit. Thirdly, with ever-increasing focus on quality, compliance means that the ship is generally chartered by the major customers, and major customers pay premium cargo rates. Compliance allows for the ship to enter port and to leave port with the minimum of delay. And finally, compliance means you increase the efficiency of your ship and you increase the residual value of your ship. Well, alternatively, the ship owner, he can choose not to comply. But not complying is the start of a downward spiral to extinction. The ship owner choosing not to comply will face more and more difficulty in operating his ships. Non-compliance restricts and will eventually stop international voyages. But most important, non-complying ships will be targeted by port state control.
Obviously, no one wants to be on the wrong side of these regulations, but it does seem to be a lot of paperwork. So what do we have to do to meet the new higher standards? Well, a lot depends on whether you're an owner or an operator, a master, a flag state, or a labour state. As owners, Stolt-Nielsen have a clear view of their responsibilities. Captain Martin Whittle.
Ship owners and masters just have to do what good ship owners and good masters always have done. He needs to decide what skills are required of his crew, and then he needs to ensure that his crew are properly certificated. He needs to choose a flag state which is whitelisted. He also needs to choose a labour supply state which is whitelisted. At this moment in time, not all flag states and labour supply states are whitelisted. So therefore the ship owner needs to verify that his chosen flag states and labour supply states are doing everything that they possibly can to ensure that they are on the whitelist by the year 2002.
Masters can't welcome extra responsibility for administration, can they? Well, surprisingly, many do. Captain Boysfield is clear about his approach.
It is not really anything different than the work that has been done over the last 20 years. Now it's in a formal procedure, a checklist that can verify that items have been done. For example, crew familiarisation. A joining crew member will ensure that he knows where the nearest fire extinguisher is, where his escape route is, what his emergency duties are. Keeping the certificates up to date has always been a requirement. The administration work that we do now is really keeping things in a structured format. Having a ready-made checklist for these items is extremely helpful. What we use checklists for are the check, for example, the vessel certification is all in order. That we would ensure that safe manning levels are complied with. Records of safety inspections and decisions are another example. We keep logs of the drills that we do. We don't plan to be ready for a particular inspection. We keep the ship ready at all times.
And what are the flag states themselves? How do they prepare for the 2002 deadline? Gerald Cooper.
As a flag state, it is extremely important that you do two major things. One is to ensure that you are on the white list as far as your systems and inspection machinery are concerned, and that the ships under your flag are in accordance with the various conventions. The other thing you have to do is to ensure that the certificates or seaman identification certificates that are given to seafarers on ships flying your flag are from countries that themselves, their training mechanism and their licensing facilities are also on the IMO whitelist. These two things are necessary to comply with the STCW and the ISM code.
The key to the success of STCW lies in the training provided by labour states. David Dearsley of the ISF has worked closely with many. How does he see their role?
Well, the labour supply states, the states that train seafarers and issue certificates to them, have got probably the most difficult job under STCW. They have to have national training syllabuses which are in line with STCW. They have to have qualified lecturers, qualified assessors, controls over their examinations, controls over the issue of their certificates. And they're also in a position where they have to apply to go on the whitelist, where they're going to be reviewed, and if they don't make the standard, then their certificates are not going to be accepted by foreign flag states. Standards of ship operation are increasing significantly. The penalties of failing to meet those standards are rising, and ship owners need highly competent crew trained to meet the international requirements. So labour supply is now a very competitive business, and ship owners will be watching carefully to see which countries make the whitelist, and that's where they're going to be recruiting from. If you're not on the whitelist, and you're not on the whitelist fairly quickly, then they're going to choose alternative supplies of labour.
So that's the way the standards are going to be raised between now and 2002. Not at a stroke, but by a series of interrelated conventions, inspections and responsibilities. Everyone in the chain stands to gain by complying with the highest standards: seafarers, owners, flag and port states. Most important of all, the maritime industry's customers will gain from a higher quality of service.